Hello friend, welcome back to Simply a Breeze. My name is Bree. If you are new here, today we are getting the GreenStalk set up. So I went ahead and I leveled this surface for the GreenStalk to sit. This spot gets really decent sun because our GreenStalk is going to be filled with peppers, which I'm super excited for. It has been a very hot day. Reed and I just got done with a garage sale and I'm trying to get things done before some moisture comes. How we like to get most things in the ground, and the moisture is really going to help with that. So we're going to get the GreenStalk assembled. We're going to continue getting plants into the ground. Well, I'm going to show you how I stack the GreenStalk, and then once I show you the initial tier, I'm going to take you back to yesterday and show you what all I got sorted out and in the ground already. So most of our tomatoes, about half of our tomatoes are already in the ground. We have some peppers in the ground. It's fantastic. So let's get this GreenStalk built. So this year I have decided that I'm going to plant all sweet peppers into my GreenStalk. I have had my GreenStalk the last 2 years and I have not successfully had things grow in that GreenStalk. I had strawberries in it 1 year, and where I had the strawberries, they were kind of just getting fried. And then the following year I tried putting some herbs in there and they weren't super happy. But last year I did have 2 pepper plants in the GreenStalk and they actually seemed pretty happy, along with my nasturtiums. So this year I thought, well, maybe peppers don't get too big, so they would fit in my GreenStalk just fine. And then Becky at Acre Homestead also said that that was an idea that she was going to do, and I was like, we're doing it. We're committing and we are going to give it a shot. The GreenStalk is great because it helps you grow in small spaces. It helps you grow in small spaces. It grows vertical. I can grow it. There's 5 tiers. I have the original GreenStalk and I can grow 6 plants per tier. So that's 30 plants that I can grow in this one tower, and it hardly takes up any space. So I'm really excited this year, and I'm really hoping that the peppers are a success, because we may do that again next year. But we will see how this progresses throughout the gardening season. Now let's talk about our tomatoes. So this year, my goal is to grow a year's worth of tomatoes and not have to supplement any of my tomatoes from a local farmer. It is nice to know that I do have that option. I do love supporting the farm that I get my extra tomatoes from, because we also go get fire roasted green chilies there as well. However, if I can grow all of our own tomatoes in our small backyard space, that's just going to be a wonderful accomplishment, and it's going to save us money. I spent all this time putting energy into getting these tomatoes to grow and starting from seed, and at this point already 2 months of work minimum has been put into these plants, and so it would be really nice if I was able to get a year's worth of harvest from these tomatoes. So my primary focus this year is to grow mostly paste tomatoes. I have a set of cherry tomatoes. I've got 1 fox cherry, 1 sun gold cherry tomato, but then every other tomato I have growing in the garden is a paste tomato. I've got Amish paste, I've got San Marzanos, and I have Romas. Romas are the variety that I have the most of. I believe I have at least 16 Roma tomatoes. And then I think I kept 5 or 6 San Marzanos, and I have 2 Amish paste all growing in our yard. So what I decided to do was that where the bed in the backyard is the back end of it doesn't get enough sun. And then one of the other beds just doesn't get sun at all. And my poor broccoli is getting blasted by the sun where it's at, and broccoli doesn't like the heat, if you didn't know that. So what I am doing here is I am digging up my broccoli. It wasn't super established in the ground, and that's really helpful. And I am actually going to transplant it into this bed right here so that it gets more shade and it gets dappled sun, and it gets the sun in the evening so the sun's not as intense, and maybe it'll keep my broccoli from growing. If I'm completely honest, I think this is going to be my last year growing broccoli. Broccoli has just been such a struggle here in north central Colorado. We just get so hot so fast, and it's really a balance between shade and sun and heat, and I have not found the sweet spot for broccoli. And so we'll see what happens, but this is probably my last year growing broccoli. With that, I couldn't fit all of my Roma tomatoes in the bed to my right there, the big 4x8 foot bed. So I am actually going to put the rest of my Roma tomatoes where the broccoli just was, because that spot also gets really decent sun. So then my tomatoes are going to thrive. I didn't want to cull any of my Romas. I didn't want to get rid of any of my Romas. I really wanted to maximize my Roma harvest this year. So that is my plan. And then we are going to figure everything else out as we go. This bed up front here, I am going to offset the Romas. That way they have a little bit more room to bush out. All of my Romas are a determinate variety of tomato, so they will more so bush than they will vine. And so if I offset them between the rows, that will help make sure that they get really good airflow and that they're not competing too much with each other. And then I can also do a lot of interplanting and companion planting with my tomatoes. That is something else that I am really trying to focus on this year, is build my skills and my knowledge around companion planting. Again, because Reed and I have such limited space here on our property, companion planting is how you make the most of the space that you have. And it also helps ward off some disease. So because our sun, where all of my beds are, not every bed gets the same amount of sun. So I'm limited where I can plant my sun-loving plants like peppers, tomatoes, beans, things like that. They all really like the sun. However, they cannot go or thrive in all of the beds that I have. So companion planting also helps keep the soil from being super depleted. As you can see here, these plants really needed to be transplanted into the ground. They were getting pretty root bound. That is something that I've struggled with this year. I think I started things maybe a little too early. Maybe next year I'll push everything back by a week, though I thought I started everything late, but apparently that doesn't appear to be the case. So everything seems to be surviving and being okay, handling root bound and a little bit of stress. But if you are a new gardener, that is something you do want to try to avoid, because it does stress out the plants, and then it makes the plant more susceptible to disease. It could, the plant may stop absorbing nutrients. It could really impact the health of the plant. So it is something that you want to avoid. However, in this case, I do think that I did get to everything in just enough time before they got too stressed and started to die on me. But I do suspect that may have something to do with why some of my tomatoes ended up getting some disease, predominantly my cherry tomatoes, but I do think maybe that had something to do with it. So the next thing I'm doing is I am interplanting my sugar rush peach peppers with my Roma tomatoes here in this bed. I want to keep my hot peppers separate from my sweet peppers because they can, I've heard, cross-pollinate, and so that's something I do want to avoid. I have some tame, they're called tam jalapenos, and they're supposed to be really low in heat, and I would like them to stay that way. Most jalapenos that I have grown here that are supposed to be hot jalapenos are incredibly hot, and they're almost impossible to eat, and I would like to enjoy a jalapeno with a little bit of spice, but not to the point where I suffer the entire time through. So I'm keeping my sweet peppers separate from my hot peppers, and the sugar rush peach peppers are a hot pepper, so I'm going to interplant them with my tomatoes. This year my goal is to successfully make a peach salsa with these peppers. My mom made peach salsa with these peppers, and it was delicious. And here's another example of how root bound these plants were getting. They desperately needed to come out. So please don't make my mistake. Learn from my mistake. Don't let your plants stress out too much and get them in the ground before they reach that point, because it's just not super healthy for peppers or plants in general for that matter. Now what I'm doing is trying to figure out how I want to place tomatoes, how I want them spaced here in this front bed. I did have tomatoes here, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but again, my spots for tomatoes to thrive is kind of limited, so I am trying to figure out good spacing to help offset disease. I also really wanted to hold on to a couple of San Marzano peppers, so now I'm just going through my garden layout to figure out if I can in fact swing keeping a couple more of my San Marzanos. And if you're anything like me, I wrote out a garden plan to take off some stress, and that garden plan has changed now 3 or 4 times. And that's okay. You are allowed to change your mind. I change my mind all the time, but I like to have somewhere to start. And so I'm really grateful for that baseline to then move on from. I do end up figuring out that I can, in fact, keep all these tomatoes that I have right here I am able to keep, and I do make them work. And I do have, I think, 2 San Marzanos and then 2 Amish paste and then an extra San Marzano. And then here you're going to see that I do go ahead and put my 2 Zapotec peppers, which are a hot jalapeno. I do end up putting them here as well. And then I'm trying to figure out how I want to interplant all of my flowers. I have so many flowers this year, and that is genuinely a wonderful problem to have. Last year I hardly had any flowers, but now I need to know how I'm going to interplant everything and make it look like beautiful chaos, not complete and utter disheveled chaos. We will see how the summer progresses, but I would like to make the most out of all of my flowers. I'm also trying to interplant a lot of marigolds with my tomatoes because marigolds do deter pests. I am growing some flowers that are very pest deterring, and so I also hope that that is successful as well. Okay, I think I've got everything mapped out, with the exception of the hot jalapenos and the cayennes. I think those are going to go in the backyard. And most other thing, that's everything else is an herb or a flower. I think I know where everything else is going. The sweet peppers are going in the GreenStalk, so we'll figure that out. Oh, this is exciting. We're getting a lot done today. That's awesome. Reed is in the backyard sanding our deck, so sorry about that. Plus, people are out and about, and there's nothing I can do about that. So, yeah, let's keep planting. I'm intermixing basil among a whole bunch of things. I'm intermixing basil and parsley because herbs generally go with everything. Maybe I'll move the parsley over there. I don't know. But I did intermix the Romas and the Sugar Rush peach peppers over there, as you saw. And then I staggered basil in between them. Maybe I'll move the basil over. I don't know yet. To be determined. Maybe I'll stagger the basil over there. I don't know. I've got more space than I thought I was going to have at the moment. We'll see. To fill the GreenStalk, I am using Mother Earth potting soil. The GreenStalk company recommends ProMix or Fox Farm, and I do have a little bit of Fox Farm left over. However, the Mother Earth I did find was just a little bit cheaper. My neighbor, who is a master gardener, really likes that soil, and she does find it really comparable to the Fox Farm. So I decided to go with that because it's just a little bit cheaper, but also because it is at our local Ace Hardware, and I didn't have to go all the way to one of our nurseries to get the soil, because our nurseries are a minimum of 30 minutes away in any direction, whereas the Ace Hardware was a 5-minute drive down the road. So we were able to get everything we needed to fill these GreenStalks, or this GreenStalk, I should say. I did go ahead and fill each tier one at a time, just so that way it was a little bit easier for me to get everything picked up, and it's also easier to put the plants in the GreenStalk before they are stacked. So I would fill a tier with soil, and then I'd go ahead and I'd put the peppers in. That cat is not our cat, it's our neighbor's cat. Her name is Steely Ann. She's very affectionate and loving, but she is not our cat. But if you filled one tier with soil and then with the plants, and then you put the next tier on top, and then fill it with soil, and then fill it with plants, and I just repeated that process until we got to the top. And this last tier is our bell peppers. I do believe I show you what is what. I'll have to double here at the end, but if I don't, just to tell you, the first tier is Marconi peppers. The second tier, I believe, was my pepperoncinis. My third tier was our Tam jalapenos, and my fourth tier was banana peppers, and my top tier, I believe, was bell peppers. If I messed up the order of those, all 5 of those varieties are in fact what's in my GreenStalk at the moment. I just don't remember in what order everything is, aside from the top and the bottom tiers. But I'm really excited to see how this experiment turns out. Everything seems really healthy so far, so we shall see what happens. Also, once I was done going ahead and getting all the plants in, each tier I would give a really good soak before I moved on to the next tier. And then once I have everything stacked, just to make sure I got the GreenStalk really saturated with water, I did go ahead and fill the top basin with water as well. I really wanted to make sure that these peppers transplanted well, especially with how root bound they were, and so I wanted to make sure they had as much moisture as possible to pull out of the soil. At this point, weather looked like it was starting to move in. Reed and I had been outside most of the day with a yard sale that we were doing all weekend, and I was very much ready to go inside, wash up, and kind of relax for the rest of the evening. So I'm giving all of the seedlings that are still in pots a really good drink just to make sure that they can handle the hot day that is coming on Monday. And then we're going to go inside, and the wind was absolutely whipping. And so it was high time we called it an evening and went and relaxed. Hello, it is the next day. We were not the next day, it's Tuesday. We weren't able to finish everything we wanted to finish Sunday evening. I was tired, it was busy. So we need to finish getting these tomatoes at the very least in the ground. I'm hoping we can finish getting the peppers in the ground as well. So let's see what we can accomplish while dinner is cooking. So all of these tomatoes right here are my Roma tomatoes, and then these 3 or 4 right here are San Marzanos. I don't know what I'm doing with them. I may put them in pots. I don't know. I would really like to see how successful San Marzanos are for me this year, but I really wanted to dedicate a lot of Romas. So let's see what happens. So some of the roots on these aren't as root bound, but some of my peppers yesterday were incredibly root bound.
like they were difficult to get out. They were so root bound. They are looking really healthy. I'll show you. It's been 2 days since I transplanted them. They're looking really good. So I'll show you those. We're just going to go ahead and chop off some lower leaves so I can plant all the way up here. Let's put that down. Put this back over. Okay, perfect. I most definitely need more of these tomato cages, but I can still get everything planted now. Another technique you can do is you can actually lay the tomato down and bend it like this. So we're going to try that method right here.
Also, I don't know if I made it clear or if I said earlier, but I am trying to space my Roma tomatoes about 1.5 feet apart at a minimum. And so we're doing 3 across the width, and then we're doing 4 across the length. This is a 4-foot by 8-foot garden bed. And I'm also trying to make sure that I don't put any near the back, near the fence, because that spot doesn't get as much sun as the front of the bed does. So that was my solution to try and make sure that these Romas get the ample sun that they need. So now I'm just going to go through, and I've got everything kind of pre-spaced out where I think I want everything to go. And we shall see how all of this plays out.
That's unfortunate. I think I have another one up front. Let me go grab it.
Thankfully, because I started so many tomatoes, I did have an extra sun gold tomato to replace the one that I just snapped in half. That is the plus side to growing more than you need, is in the event you do something like that, or in the event one of them dies or something. That is one of the reasons I'm really upset at myself for culling some of the peppers when it came time to transplant the peppers from the seedling cells into the bigger pots. But at the time, I didn't have the means or the resources to transplant them into a bigger pot because I was running out of pots. I also didn't have the space under grow lights, and I also didn't have enough soil. So going forward next year, I will make sure to keep a couple of extras of every plant because it really came in handy for my tomato. And I'm really upset at myself because I only have 2 hot jalapeno peppers plants growing this year because of that. I had some die they did the weird thing where they broke off at the roots, and I don't understand what happened. So I'm really upset at myself for culling and my peppers down to only what I wanted to grow because it kind of bit me in the butt. But it is a lesson learned, and next year I now know to do better.
It feels so good. We've got, I think, every tomato we're going to plant this year in the ground, which I'm super excited. So I've got a couple San Marzanos that I'm just going to sell, probably to neighbors or to people who want them. But also, I think we've got all of our peppers planted too. There may be 2 that I haven't gotten planted. I don't know. But we'll go double check. But let me show you what we've got. So here, that is a fox cherry, and then that one's a sun gold. And then we've got our cayenne peppers in the front. We've got 6, and then I've got 3 San Marzanos here. Those are a semi-determinate variety, so they will vine just a little bit. I'm hoping they bush a little more than they vine, but only time will tell. I still have basils and flowers to plant, but that can happen another night. The thing when you work full time is you make do with the time you have. So then that pot and those 2 pots are San Marzanos, and then every tomato planted in this bed is aroma. And then what I'm thinking of doing is I'll interplant some basil, I'll interplant carrots. I want to really focus on companion planting this year, but also I want to focus on preserving a year's worth of tomatoes. That's canned diced tomatoes and canned tomato sauce. So those are my goals. We will see if we get to that this year because of the pace varieties that I have chosen to plant. Let me give you a quick update on the kohlrabi and the broccoli. Honestly, that broccoli looks okay. That one back there. That one, maybe. He doesn't have, looks like he's forming a head. This one may survive. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what this one's doing. That one has the tiniest little head in there. I don't know if I can get you to focus on that. There it is. Look at that. And then that one already went to seed, which is really unfortunate. But the kohlrabi really needs to be planted up, so that will happen tomorrow, hopefully. Okay, so it does look like I have 2 peppers here still. I think they're both hot peppers. Yeah, they're the Zapotec peppers. So I have 2 of those left. They're going to be planted up here with the tomatoes, so we'll get to that. And then our pepper tower looks absolutely stunning. Everything, I did have one die because I crushed it when I was loading the GreenStalk. And then I did have one where I broke the stem again, I don't understand how I keep doing this. I've never had that issue with my peppers. So I did have another pepper die. Here, let's see if I can find it there. That one's looking kind of sad. We'll see if he survives. And then there's that one. So that's okay. We will have plenty. Oh, so this one, I crushed it with this tier, but it already had stuff growing at the base, so I'm not going to lose a pepper, which is fantastic. What's going on with this one is I'm guessing I also broke it off of the roots. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it is, but I don't know. It is what it is. And just like that, our tomatoes and our peppers are all planted. I'm super excited. That makes me feel really good. I am so excited for this garden season. I'm really hoping I've gotten some things dialed in. Clearly I haven't gotten certain things dialed in, but every year is going to be a learning year, and that is okay. I just love being outside, digging in the dirt, and growing our own food. It's super rewarding. So if you're planting a garden, I'd love to know what you're planting. I'd love to know where you're at so we can have a conversation about it. I'm always curious to know what other people do. Other than that, I will see you all the next time. We're in the kitchen or we're in the garden. Have a good night. Bye.